no activation of prana will give you the reflection of a better version of yourself before all versions of yourself begin to get reflected in a pristine lens of or pristine surface of your mind. When you can see this, behold all this, maybe at first terrified at the sight of some, but then gradually the understanding dawns that all that is indeed in the domain of consciousness. And this is where the peace and the deep, deep sense of true sense of acceptance comes. Understanding the experience and expectations of Pranotthana comes from Joanne. Background. I've been in the phase for 5 years, and while I understand that Pranotthana is a preparatory phase for clearing accumulated stress without leading to a transformation of consciousness, I often wonder, why don't I feel any different? Despite years of being shaken, I still have the same weakness, sensitivities, and psychological tendencies. My triggers remain unchanged. Am I expecting too much or misunderstanding what clearing stress and samskaras entails? I assume this release would be felt and led to greater emotional control or a better version of myself. I deeply yearn for the process to progress, yet I am terrified it will. I fear I would not have the emotional resilience and psychological maturity you often emphasize. I also doubt my worthiness, as I still feel like the troubled person who turned to meditation years ago for its therapeutic benefits. Questions. Why don't I feel any different? Second question. Am I expecting too much of misunderstanding what it means to clear the system of accumulated stress and samskaras? And the third one. Should the release of accumulated stress be felt and translate to a greater degree of emotional control and the emergence of a better version of myself? Well, I don't know whether you have attended our live programs. This would have been helpful for me to know, because I don't recognize the name just like that, and there are no further notes. But I would say that yes, if the phase of Pranotthana, that activation of pranic currents and pranic activity, should and could be measured by the way we feel how our lives is getting more aligned within. I wouldn't say emotional control, perhaps greater emotional introspection, greater emotional acceptance. But I don't want to split hairs here, it's fine. And the emergence of a better version of myself. Well, a better version of yourself really is not in the domain of just realignment of pranic forces. This is also why we gave it a due attention now at each occasion to bring the distinction between true Kundalini process and Pranotthana. Because only Kundalini, in terms of what it represents as a process, can bring the emergence of a better version. Better version here is a remake of, remaking. So whether it's better or not, again, you see, like it's subject to the language, subject to the, let's say, how we use this on a daily basis. But I don't want to bring any sort of further ideas for you to feed that sense of, let's say, a lack of self-worth, that somehow the true awakening can facilitate something very, very undesirable, unpleasant. I want to clarify for you and for everyone, for all of us here once again, the beauty, the power, and the, I would say, extraordinary nature of Kundalini process is that it brings the totality of what it represents to be individual. It brings the totality of our consciousness for it to see in full, or at least fuller measure, of who we are in essence. This is what Jung attempted in his work to bring that and implement that, at the time, nothing short of revolutionary, into his work in the domain of psychology. Because this was understanding, even though Jung did not go through this, we know that very well himself, but he understood, he had enough insights that that's what Kundalini process truly represents, that it brings the totality of consciousness for it to behold itself, where all opposites are being reconciled. And when we say all opposites, here means the angelic and the demonic. Here means the what we call as, on a daily basis, let's say in the let's say this mundane interactions, as better, with all that what is opposite of that. In other words, we meet all these shadowy aspects of our psyche which prior to that remained unconscious, face on. And that is what Kundalini process is characterized by. Pranotthana doesn't issue that. This is why people out there, left, right, and center, speak as if they went through Kundalini process. Some begin to teach, some even begin to fancy being in the role of awakening others Kundalini, so to speak. When they didn't go through the process themselves, it's just the symptomatology is very similar. But nothing happened to their personality, nothing happened to that what this is truly is all about. So that emotional resilience and psychological maturity that you are afraid you are lacking in is like a chicken and egg story. It cannot be truly known for what it is unless we go through that, because that's what consciousness here keeps it all in check. So how can I know my greatness and my limitation if all this is being subjected to only access to the conscious level in the waking state, some of it released in a subconscious, as a subconscious material in dreams, and then that what is concealed totally in the unconscious of deep sleep. No, I'm living as if in fragmented, and it is living fragmented reality. Fragmented reality. Multiple personalities is a normal thing. In fact, it is a normal thing. All of us carry these traits of multiple personalities until they begin to get gathered. You see? And the ultimate phase of that gathering is the gathering of that what is here mimics the very, very fabric of consciousness in that very, very tantric way of that what is represented in the teaching as that power of awareness and the reflective power of self-awareness, which is the union of Shiva Shakti, Vimarsha, Prakasha and Vimarsha. When one sees oneself fully for what one is, and nothing that one sees one can deny or will want to deny. You see? It's an incorporation of utter and entire unseen, unconscious material, because all that is nothing other than my own very self. So that's the ultimate healing, ultimate swallowing one's own self, the symbol. So, in your question, which is titled Understanding the Experience and the Expectations of Pranotthana, I don't want us to confuse the therapeutic applications of Pranotthana. And even then, even though you said you've got over 5 years of that process, I want to make sure, like if you were in our live programs, so that I can put the name to the face, so that I can, anyway, so hopefully this will be encouragement for you. Encouragement, okay? Not a discouragement. You're seeing there's a lack of progress. No activation of prana will give you the reflection of a better version of yourself before all versions of yourself begin to get reflected in a pristine lens or pristine surface of your mind. When you can see this, behold all this, maybe at first terrified at the sight of some, but then gradually the understanding dawns that all that is indeed in the domain of consciousness. And this is where the peace and the deep, deep sense of true sense of acceptance comes. Because there's no part of myself that I can or want to deny. I'm not afraid. They're no longer, what are they called? Skeletons in the cupboard, right? They're no longer gremlins under the bed. They're no longer these monsters or the dragons or what have you. But all this is seen in the light of my own awareness as my own very dear self. From that, of course, great understanding rises of the importance of what is then from that place of understanding where the portion of free will, what I'm here to nurture, foster, what am I here to what am I here to, let's say, give full light, and what I simply leave to the acceptance and not to entertainment. I can see your comment now that you were in Vienna with us once. Okay, well, that's good to know. Now I can begin to remember who you are. Okay, well, that's what I feel like relating in this moment. Okay. Hopefully this will encourage you to not to shy away from what this life is about, okay?